The front door was wide open. That was the first red flag. The second was the blood trail running down the porch steps like spilled paint, vanishing into the dry grass. There wasn't supposed to be blood. There wasn't supposed to be anything. It was just a welfare check. A 9-year-old boy, violent, unresponsive, third home in 2 years. I was supposed to knock, ask a few questions, check for bruises, maybe call in a psychologist if things felt off. Instead, I stood at the threshold of a house that smelled like bleach and death, staring into silence so thick it made my ears ring. I stepped inside, toys on the floor, a couch flipped onto its side, walls smeared with handprints, but they were small, and they were everywhere, dragged, streaked. I called out, but my voice sounded too loud, too alone. "Micah, this is Child Protective Services. I'm here to check on." A wet crunch. It came from the hallway. I moved toward it on instinct, even as every hair on my body screamed to turn back. My shoes slid in something slick. The carpet was sticky. That's when I saw him. He was crouched over what used to be a man, his foster father maybe. What was left of the body didn't look human anymore, just a ruin of meat and bone. Micah turned slowly, strands of tendon dangling from his mouth. His face was blank, except for his eyes. Dead white, clouded. He didn't scream. He didn't talk. He just lunged. I slammed the bedroom door shut as his body slammed into it, clawing, snarling. Something animal was in that boy now. Something wrong. I backed away, chest heaving, and ran out the house, across the lawn, and into a neighborhood I no longer recognized. Flames rose from the house across the street. A man in a hazmat suit stood in the yard, watching it burn. A woman screamed down the road. Children chased her on all fours. One of them was on fire and didn't seem to notice. Sirens, gunshots. The world had ended 5 minutes ago, and I was just catching up. I didn't stop running until my legs gave out. I collapsed behind a set of trash bins in someone's backyard, sweat pouring, chest heaving, stomach trying to climb out of my throat. I could still hear the screams, too many, some distant, others way too close. The neighborhood looked like any other on the outside, but something had changed. It wasn't just the screaming or the blood. It was the way the air buzzed with panic, how lights flickered like the grid itself was panicking, how people moved in jerks and bursts, some fast, some slow, but all of them wrong. I pulled myself up and kept low, moving from one fence to the next, listening, watching. A dog barked frantically, then whimpered, then nothing. At the edge of the block was the elementary school. I remembered it from Micah's file. He was supposed to start there next week. I figured maybe I'd find help there, maybe shelter, or at least a phone that worked. The front doors were barricaded with chairs, desks, anything they could find. Someone inside must have seen me, because after a tense pause, the barricade shifted just enough to let me in. Inside, it looked like a war zone made by teachers and desperate parents. There were maybe a dozen people holed up, 2 teachers, a custodian, a handful of parents, and a few crying kids. all of them wide-eyed, all of them looking at me like I was either their savior or the one who'd brought it all here. "You're with the state?" one of them asked. I nodded slowly. I was checking on a foster kid. Something happened. He attacked me. He killed his whole family. They looked at each other, some in disbelief, others not surprised at all. "You're not the only one," a man said, his voice trembling. "My niece did the same thing. 9 years old. Bit my brother. Tore his face off." The custodian bolted upright. "Do you hear that?" We all went quiet. At first, nothing. Then, a siren. Not the kind the city uses. This was lower, deeper, almost mechanical. And then came the sound of feet. Not footsteps, not orderly. It was chaotic, wild, like a wave of bodies slamming into pavement and walls. I peered through the blinds and my stomach turned to ice. They were coming. Not 5, not 10. Hundreds. Stumbling, sprinting, crawling over each other. Some still in tattered pajamas. Some with half a face. Some barely human. We scrambled to reinforce the barricades, but it was too late. Windows cracked, doors shuttered. Then, an explosion. Something blew through the gymnasium wall. A canister, metal, marked with a white symbol I didn't recognize. Gas hissed. Kids screamed. I barely saw the men in white suits through the smoke. Hazmat gear, tactical vests, weapons. They weren't rescuing anyone. They were clearing the place, silently, methodically. I grabbed one of the crying kids and ran, out the side door, through the parking lot. I didn't look back, but I heard the gunfire. I heard the silence that followed. We hid under an overturned school bus behind the building. The little girl clung to my arm, sobbing into my sleeve. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, until the smoke drifted away and the night air returned. I looked up. The hazmat team was gone. So was everyone else. We crept out and found nothing but silence and blood. Down the road, the wind blew hard, and with it came a new sound, moaning, thousands of voices, all coming from the same direction. We needed to go, fast. I carried the girl on my back as we fled toward the tree line, hoping the woods would hide us, even for a while. We didn't have a plan, just fear. And in my gut, the terrible feeling that whatever was happening wasn't meant to stop. The woods were quiet but not safe. Twigs cracked underfoot. Branches swayed like they were watching. The little girl, Kaylee, hadn't spoken in over an hour, just clung to my side, silent and shaking. Every time I stopped to listen, I heard it. The distant rustle of leaves that didn't match the wind, or the faint slap of bare feet on wet dirt. The horde was spreading. It didn't move like a mob. It moved like a flood, directionless but inevitable, and we were always just barely ahead of it. We found the trailer buried off an old logging road, camouflaged under a tarp and branches, like someone wanted it hidden. I don't know why I went in. Maybe I was hoping for shelter, or maybe I was looking for proof that this nightmare wasn't just in my head. Inside, the lights were off, but the place smelled like burnt plastic and copper. A metal case sat open on the folding table, its contents spilled across the floor. There were vials, syringes, notes, and a binder with a familiar logo stamped into the leather. ViraClean Solutions. I froze. I picked it up with shaking hands. Inside were pages of files, case numbers, photo IDs, psychological evaluations. Some were redacted, others incomplete, but I recognized one of the names instantly. Micah, my foster kid. His photo stared up at me, black bar across the eyes. Next to it, Subject Zeta 9, Phase 3, Response Initiated. I flipped further. Kaylee's name was in there too. Across her page in red, High Reactivity, Observe Transition, Do Not Interfere. My head spun. The world narrowed. They weren't just foster kids. They were part of something that involved tracking, observation, and now eradication. Footsteps outside, not shambling, heavy, boots. I yanked Kaylee into the back of the trailer, behind a row of cabinets. We crouched together in the dark as the door creaked open. Voices, low, calm. She's not here, but she was. Subject Zeta 9's handler. She took the files. A pause, then, doesn't matter. Burn it. I covered Kaylee's ears just before the ignition click. Flames bloomed against the walls. I kicked out the rear vent, dragged us through, and rolled down the incline behind the trailer as the thing went up like dry kindling. Our skin blistered from the heat. They didn't chase us. They didn't have to. The message was clear. We weren't supposed to survive. We ran until we hit the ridge, and there, looking out over the trees, I saw it. A town in flames. The infected pouring into the streets like ants over a carcass. Helicopters overhead. ViraClean crates dropped in clusters at intersections. Some still open, others broken, and people inside them. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Kaylee clutched my hand tighter, her small voice cracking the silence. What do we do now? I looked back once more. Back toward the smoke, toward the sirens, toward the fire. And I said, we don't stop. We don't let them win. Because this wasn't an outbreak. This was a cleanse. And we were the ones who got away. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.